right. It looks to me like we are currently recording, so I'm going to try and keep an eye on making sure that I'm letting people into the room, and we will go from there. And this, like I said, this part will be recorded so that you'll be able to watch it later after we get it captioned and make it accessible. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. This training, mini training, is about completing your MPO evaluation in MSIS. This is an annual responsibility that we all have, and it's something that's developed over time to be part of our MSIS application, so that it isn't something you have to do through some separate means like a Word document or something like that. So this is our evaluation process. We will always have a process that kind of is cyclical. So we start by selecting our MPOs and then implementing those strategies. That is already done for this year, and you're already in the process of implementing your strategies. Then we go to data collection, data analysis, entering the data, and then reflecting on the data, and then that leads us back into selecting MPOs for the following year. So that's the process that we go through. All right, I wanted to really quickly cover the difference between MPOs, measurable program outcomes, which I often refer to as measurable performance outcomes, kind of interchangeably, but the official term, measurable program outcomes, measure how successful we are at meeting a goal, which came from a need identified in our comprehensive needs assessment, which means that these are updated every 3 years. So we are currently in the 2020 through 2023 MPOs that we'll be using for those 3 years. Strategies are the methods you are using for working toward that goal. There are many strategies that you can use in order to meet the goal that's listed in the MPO. The MPO is something that can be measured. It has set criteria. It is either accomplished or not accomplished for each year, but there are lots of ways that you can reach that goal, and many different strategies that you can use. So just so you know, the kind of the difference between MPOs and strategies. So the first part of the process for us for today's presentation is about how you collect your data. So there's a certain data that needs to be collected every year: parent surveys, student surveys, staff surveys, pre and post test scores for instructional services, a list of mentored students and if they earned credits, and the MSIS services report. All of those are going to give you the data you need in order to be able to submit your MPOs and determine if you've met those or not. So how should you store that data? There really are 2 ways that you can store your data. You can store your data electronically. You can scan it all as it comes in if it's surveys. You can have things, I would have a single folder that says this is our MPO data for 2020, 2021. And then next year you'll have a new folder that says MPO data 2021, 2022. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, you can do it all on paper. My strong recommendation is that you have your data being collected all in one place. And the reason that I say that is because it is much easier to throw it all in the same file folder, or all in the same binder, or all in the same place electronically, and then pull it up when you're ready to work with that data later. It's a whole lot easier if it's easy to find. The other thing I'm going to recommend is that you have at least 2 people who know where the data is, because what we've discovered in the past, unfortunately, is when somebody leaves, sometimes the data is nobody knows where it is. So please be sure that at least 2 people know where it is. So the next step is completing your data analysis. So there's some steps to take before you open MSIS and you go to your MPOs. You can work on those, save, and come back and finish them later. So you don't need to do it all at once. But here's what I would suggest is doing a little analysis, doing some tabulating, some summarizing, and look at some reports. So you want to tally your parent, student, and staff surveys. calculate the percentage of students showing gains if you've got that pre and post one that you're working on, calculate the number of mentored, the percentage of mentored students earning credits, and then run an MSIS services report so you have the absolutely freshest data when you're doing your MPOs. The next thing I'm going to tell you, this is going to maybe be a surprise. We started last year to do an outside evaluation of Idaho's migrant education program. As you know, last year was a little bit interrupted. So this year we are doing an outside evaluation of our migrant education program. So for this year only, I am going to be asking districts to actually scan their surveys and upload them to the secure site. We have new surveys. They are fantastic. There's a parent survey. It asks one question of all parents, and it asks the second question if you have a preschooler. It is so simple to use. So I'll be showing you those in a little bit. And they were actually in the end of the document I emailed out about a half an hour ago. So for this year only, we are going to ask that you scan and submit those surveys to SFTP. And if you would please on your file name, say district name. So, Bruno Grandview surveys or Bonneville surveys, so that way when I collect those and provide them to the outside evaluator, I can keep track of which districts I have. So the next step is going to be entering your data. This is where we get a little bit technical, but it's super easy. This is the process for entering it into MSIS. So when you go into MSIS, you're going to log in. And once you're there, you are going to go on the left-hand side. It gives your district name. And below that, there's some navigation areas. You're going to go to the 2021 data collection. That's for this year, obviously. And then once you're there, you're going to go into the CFSGA MPO evaluation. And this really is a two-part data collection. We're not covering the re-interview summaries, and you guys are doing a fantastic job of completing those. So we're just talking about the MPO evaluation. All right, so this is a little bit about, I should have changed that. It shouldn't say using, it's about using comments, but it's also about entering data. So you're gonna enter both numbers into the system. So for this example, we're looking at English language arts and mathematics, and we're looking at the number of parents attending an activity who have said on their survey that they have increased their skills at supporting their child in academics at home. You'll notice, for those of you who are old timers like me, it used to say math or reading, and it was very specific. We've combined math and reading this year, starting this year. So if a parent attends an activity that you've held for the migrant program, and they report that they actually feel better able to support their child in any academic area, then that is considered the outcome we're looking for. And so you're going to want to have the number of parents who did report an increase in their ability to support their child at home. And then you also want to know the number of parents who in total are filled out the survey. Once you've entered those two numbers, click save, and the system itself will calculate if you've met the goal. So it'll tell you yes or no. As far as comments go, if the answer is no, you weren't able to meet the goal, then you do need to provide a comment. And that comment is going to just tell us, the outside evaluator and me, if there's anything that you've identified that was a barrier to meeting that goal. I'm kind of guessing there's going to be some barriers this year. I will be unsurprised if there are some goals that we were not able to meet due to the current environment that we find ourselves in. If you have a goal that you met, you absolutely don't have to write a comment, but I will just let you know, I read every single one, and I appreciate so much those of you who throw in a quick comment. I'm not looking for a book. Quick phrase, sentence, little something is very helpful because it shows me that big picture of what we're doing and how it's working in the districts. All right, due dates. Because of our outside evaluation, we're doing something a little different this year. I think it is something that we probably will continue to do. I think it will help. I know in my own life, I live by deadlines. There is so much to get done that sometimes if there isn't a deadline, it just gets pushed back and pushed back. In the fall, when we have our rollover in MSIS, I've noticed that sometimes we really struggle to get all this stuff in. Even if I start sending out reminders a couple of weeks ahead, you're in the middle of the getting students into school, making sure they're registered, identifying new migrant families. For those districts that don't have a summer program, my need for this year is that you have your data collection completed, especially the MPOs, by June 30th. And there's no reason not to have re-interviews in at the same time and submit them both. For those districts that do have a summer program, some of the MPOs relate to summer. So therefore you have until September 15th. And that I'm just noticing there's a wrong date. I'll change the text. It is September 15th, not September 30th. And our goal is that honestly, if you've got everything else done before summer school, just go and finish the summer school ones right on the last day of summer school and be done with it. You can absolutely submit them earlier. You don't need to wait till September 15th. You can submit them as soon as you're done with your summer program. So feel free to do that. All right, so then the last step in the process is just reflecting on our evaluation, because this tells us kind of what we need to do moving forward. So this is very intuitive to think, okay, we've done a lot of data collection. We're evaluating our program. How is that going to inform our practice for the following year? So a couple of things to think about, and some discussions to have in your districts. And I know a lot of you guys, liaisons and directors, are working together hand in glove, side by side. For some of you, it's the very same person. So discuss this with yourself. If you're in that, no, I don't mean that. Discuss it with a thought partner in your district. So the question is maybe how many MPOs were met? For those that weren't met, what was the cause? What was the barrier that kept you from meeting that MPO? And then the other question to think about is, okay, the MPO is the goal, but there are a whole bunch of strategies listed to go with every single MPO we have. Let's say we tried one strategy and it wasn't super successful. Okay, well, what would we try next? What could we do differently? What could we tweak? And then finally, as you're continuing that discussion, really talking about what changes, if any, you want to make for the following year. One of the things that I will say about education is we're constantly changing and evolving, but that doesn't mean that we should throw out anything that's already working well. So if you have something in your system that's allowed you to meet your MPOs, or something that you feel is very promising, maybe you tried it for the first time this year, and you're like, I'm not going to just throw this out because I really think it's going to work, but we're going to tweak it just a little and try it again next year. That's fine. This is an internal process for you as you're making those decisions. Now, if you noticed on our deadlines where we have September 15th for districts with summer school, I'm still going to encourage you, even if you have a summer school program, to have all of the non-summer school related MPOs done by June 30th. And what else is due by June 30th? CFSGA. So that is not, it's partly for our outside evaluation, but it's also partly because these two processes really should be happening about the same time. Evaluating your MPOs, seeing how it's going, and then using that information to inform the decisions you're making that you put into the CFSGA. So I just want you to be aware of that, that there's a reason why those two kind of dates go hand in hand. All right, so that is going to bring us to the end of the recorded part of this mini training. So let me stop the recording and then we will have some time for discussion.